Hello, Stephan.
Hello. Great to see everyone. Let's see. We have a couple of 1 minute. Hey, Barbara.
How are you?
Good, good. Good to see you. It's been like a long time, right?
All right. But I'm ready.
Good morning.
Good morning. Barbara and I were in the workshop just like last week.
Yeah. Yes. And I enjoyed it so much. I am doing it again. And I'm going to watch my notes and see if he says anything new. And if he doesn't, maybe it'll sink in this time.
It's going to be word by word exactly same.
Okay, that's great.
Let's see. Okay, so while we're before we get into the workshop content, I'd like to introduce the folks at Terracotta, and they're doing something great. They're making art teaching accessible to a whole lot more people with much more convenience. And so here you can see together Ishani and Jacob.
Thank you, Stephen, for the very nice words. Yeah, we're Jacob and Ishani, we're partners in life and crime, and we started Terracotta to really solve our own problems as art students. We wanted to learn from masters around the world like Stephen, but wanted to do it online in a way that technology enabled great learning and wasn't a barrier to it. So we're gonna be here the whole time today, tomorrow, and day after to make sure you have a great class. I'm gonna put my email and phone number in the Zoom chat. If you have any technical problems, either with Zoom or in getting to your studio and sharing your work with Stephen, I'll be here to help you out.
Yeah, and if you have any questions, you can unmute yourself and ask Stephen along the way. Otherwise, there's a mute button in the bottom left corner of your screen. And if you can leave yourselves on mute while he's doing demonstrations so we don't have any background noise, that's going to make for a great experience for all of us.
Yeah, and I'll be the mute police if anybody's dog starts misbehaving. All right, back to you, Stephen. Thank you so much for the time.
Great, thank you, thank you. So before we, so this workshop is just portrait in watercolor. It's something that I enjoy doing it. I saw, although most of us have never met in person, I've seen your work and admire your works for a long time. So I'm humbled that you're joined the class, and I think it'd be great if we could just kind of go around to introduce yourself. If you can tell us real briefly your name, where are you coming to the class from, and what you are trying to get out from this workshop. It will be fantastic. So how do we do that? Do we just go on the screen square? Sandy, you're the first.
Sandy,
Sandy Burns. I live in Maryland, and I have been watercoloring for maybe 7 years, and I love doing portraits. I love Stephen's style, and I want to learn to do them looser the way you do. So that's it for me, and I'm really honored to be here.
Thank you. And Barbara?
I am thrilled to be here. I know that Stephen is going to be working on his tenure at the University of North Texas, so I want as much class time as I can get with him. I love Stephen's masterful use of brush strokes and colors and movement, and he just inspires me so much. I've been painting 5 years, and have found such joy in painting in my retirement. I just can't believe that at this point in time, there is such passion and drive for both learning and understanding, and I am very grateful to be here.
Thanks. That's very nice, Barbara. Henry? Henry?
Are you asking me? Henry Lee?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. I'm Henry Lee in Los Angeles. I haven't met Master Zhang, but I saw your original work in one of the AWS annual exhibition. We had a workshop. I was a teacher of Chinese brush painting, and I was invited to Florida, Sarasota, right? I saw your painting barbershop there. I was so impressed, and I since added your as a follower on Instagram, I think.
Well, thank you, Henry. I think Henry and I checked you out a little bit, both from China. We went to the universities in China and then came to the States, so we share a lot of things in common. And then I think you're a successful, accomplished Chinese art teacher too, right?
Yeah, I'm basically a Chinese brush painting artist and a teacher. I started to learn Western painting about two years and a half ago from a teacher. I also, just various teachers around the country, and I learned also from online, the courses. So I'm basically self-taught artist. I didn't take any art school. I was in history department, archaeology major. Yeah.
Great. Well, welcome. Thank you, Rebecca.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Kretzinger. I'm from Illinois, and I think what everybody has said about Stephen's work, I totally agree with. But I think what really, really moves me about your work is the emotion. I just feel your painting so much, and I just want to put more of that into my work. That's really important to me. So I'm just thrilled to be here.
Thank you, Rebecca. I appreciate it. Pam?
Hi, I'm Pam Winger, and I'm from Central Pennsylvania. I've been a fan of your work for years, and I always share it in the classes that I teach as an example of what to aspire to. And I saw your demo at Watercolor Live, and it moved me to tears. And when I found out that you were doing a workshop that I could attend, I jumped on it right away because I think I have things to learn from you. So I'm excited. And a number of my students are here, which is exciting, people I've been working with. So that's great.
Thank you. Well, the respect is mutual. I love your work.
Thank you, Stephen.
Diane?
Hi, I'm from Indianapolis, and I also took the Watercolor Live class and just loved your demo. And so I saw the class that you were offering now on Facebook, and I just jumped on it. I've been painting for 14 years, but whenever I've had to put a portrait in a painting, it's always been a white-knuckled experience. And I did one for you to critique, and as I looked at it later, I realized your work is so loose, and my work, I'm not taking any risks. So I'm really delighted to be here.
Thank you, Diane. Emmeline, right?
Yes, hi. Hi, I'm Emmeline, and I actually only started painting watercolor after retirement 3 years ago, and it becomes one of my passion. And when I'm actually a student of Pete Morris, and actually I also learned classes from Henry. But Anyway, the reason why, I am just an admirer of you is that when Pete took me, we went to a workshop, and then he took me to the Watercolor West 2019, and we just absolutely fell in love with your Barbara thing. I mean, we thought you should win first prize. So afterwards, we've been following you. So I am thrilled that I am in this workshop. I want to learn because I'm not good at portrait, and I just want to learn from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. I'm sorry to mispronounce your name.
No, that's all right.
Bev? You're muted.
Got me. Hi, Stephen. We've been communicating a little bit, and I'm very excited to be in this workshop. I learned about you from Pam Wenger, who she's a teacher of mine, and I love her classes, and I'm very excited to see if I can push the limits with my portraits. I'm kind of in a stuck place. I'm kind of ready to get a little more abstract, to get a little looser. I'm interested in background shapes to complement the work, but not detract from my work. And so I'm really excited to be here. I went on Facebook after I heard about that you did Watercolor Live because I couldn't attend. And I followed the progression of what you did on that painting there. You were kind enough to share just little snippets of how you progressed. And so I looked at that and I thought, man, if there's ever a class that becomes available, I'd love to do that. So here I am. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. I appreciate it. Pete?
Yeah, hi, Steve.
Hi.
Stephen. As Emmeline said, I saw your barbershop painting at the Watercolor West, and I thought it should have won the Best in Show. And it's been in my mind ever since I saw the picture. I don't specialize in portraits. I'm a watercolor artist, but I feel like that's an area I want to develop. I've done a lot of sketching of people. I drawn thousands of people on the metro train, and I published a book about it. But my stuff is kind of sketchy up to this point. I did send you a couple of samples of my works, but I feel like there's nothing trite about portraits. You know, that it's always a subject that's, if it's done right, it means something, has meanings. People are valuable. So I'm looking forward to it. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you, Pete. I agree with you. I think there's a whole lot that I can learn from the humanity and life experience and characteristics, personality and things like that. So I'm looking forward to it too. So, Polly, you're on mute.
Hi.
You're still on mute.
There, sorry. Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
I'm Polly Wallner. I live in Northwest Wisconsin, pretty much in the middle of nowhere. I've taken workshops from Pam Wenger, and I saw your demo on Watercolor Live. And to not repeat everything that everyone else has said, I'm really thrilled to be here, and I'm really humbled to be with all these amazing artists. I'm really looking forward to learning a lot these next 3 days. Thanks.
Thanks, Polly. Appreciate it. Dina, right?
Deanna?
Deanna, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Hi, my name is Deanna Bojo. I'm in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. So I can't thank the terracotta guys enough for this, because otherwise it would mean a trip for me. I took Watercolor Live, and I do portraiture, and I thought, well, once any workshop that I can get my hands on by Stephen Zhang comes up, I will, and I am. So I'm really looking forward to these 3 days. I paint mostly portraiture, and in watercolor. And I'm a signature member of the Canadian Society of Watercolor. So, there's so much to learn, and I like loosening up. So looking forward to all this and to meeting you all online. Thank you.
Thank you. Hiep, is that how, I'm sorry, Mr. Wen, how do you call you?
Yes, my name, first name pronounced like a Heep. Heep, yes, Heep Nguyen. Last name is very popular for Vietnamese people, right? So I'm living in Houston, Texas. And I've just retired early this year. And I have a background in architecture, but since I came to US, I worked for oil company, ExxonMobil, and in financial and financing and planning. But I always have interest in art. So I, start to learn Chinese brush painting about 10 years ago. But when I moved to Houston, Texas, 5 years ago, I found the watercolor society there, and I joined them, start to do watercolor painting, but mostly landscape. So I did one or two portrait in watercolor, but since I came across your Facebook page, and I was so amazed with your skill and techniques. So when I saw the announcement about your workshop, I signed up right away. So I hope that I can learn more about watercolor, and especially in watercolor portrait. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Heep. Chris?
Hi, Steve. I, like many others, am mentored by Pam Wenger, and I share her excitement at your demonstration in Watercolor Live. I am a relatively new to art and to watercolor. I retired from the Army in 2018 and took up watercolor then. But I'm very excited to learn from you and your masterful skills, and I look forward to this class.
Looking forward to it too. Thanks. Caroline?
Oops. Hello? Yeah.
Hi, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice to see you again. Yeah, I believe we first met in the Watercolor West when you had that painting. It's not the haircut, it's the other one, the two, a brother and a sister. So it's nice to see you again. Yeah. So.
Nice to see you again, Caroline.
Yeah.
Marietta?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I saw you on Watercolor Live and was really looking forward to this today. I don't know how to get my video on, but it's probably best that I'm not on. So I don't paint as loose as I want to. Okay, here we go. Maybe I can figure this out.
Oh, here we go. It works.
I'm new to Zoom, so forgive me. But I would love to learn to paint looser. I've been painting on and off for years, but I find that the challenge of intensive workshops really gets my motivation going and helps me put more time into it. So thank you.
Thank you. Where are you located?
I'm in Suffolk, Virginia.
Oh, wow.
So
great.
I'm probably later than most everyone there.
All right. Well, thank you, Marietta. Hey, Joe, welcome. We're just doing your introductions, talk about where you're from and what you try to get out of this workshop.
Okay. Okay, so true confessions. Let me see. One of my sisters-in-law is related to Stephen, so I know about Stephen through family. Stephen has done a demonstration in the past of my brother-in-law as a portrait, and I'm always startled at the emotional capture and the resemblance. I actually am a friend of Emmeline, who's in this class with me, and I take class from Henry Lee, who's been a great inspiration and has lovely resources for painting materials. And I am the newbie on the block because I have a tendency to want to paint with people who have been painting for 4 decades, and I've been painting for about 12 minutes. So I understand I have a long way to go, but it's been really fun and the interaction has been terrific. So I'm very glad you're related to Shameen, my sister-in-law.
Yeah, the Watercolor Live demo was Greg, is Joe's brother-in-law and my wife's cousin's husband. Amazing person. So
yeah,
great subject to paint, full of personality. And yeah, and then ever since, Joe have been just pushing me to have workshop done, open.
Yes, exactly.
And I was, you know, again, someone like Barbara said, I'm on tenure track. I'm trying to get my academic stuff going. And then I think Joe really motivated me and, you know, saying we got, you know, people, so it really helped me to get going. And then terracotta is a great opportunity. So several things come together and here we got a workshop. So
I feel like it's my service, my philanthropy and service to the community to get you to teach more and to a broader audience.
So thank you. Okay, so thankful, you know, nice to meet all of you finally in person, and good to see some of you guys. So I think we share something in common, which is, you know, painting human with watercolor. And so the structure of the workshop is pretty simple. I put it on the website already. So every day we'll have a quick, short introduction, not necessarily anything in-depth lecture, but just kind of things that I look at it, the different aspect of things I look at it in watercolor portrait. And then each class I will do a demo. So today will be a man, and then next one is a woman. So, and then the last one is the sort of a person in a environment, sort of storytelling. So we address sort of different issues in 3 different days. And at the end of the day, usually we'll have a Q&A, you know, discussion as, you know, everybody will have, you know, everyone is accomplished in art, in life, in everything, which is important for the class. So I think this is going to be a sort of a exchange and interaction and dialogue more than, you know, one-sided. So during the demo, if you have questions, you know, feel free to ask, as long as it's not, you know, we're not tripping each other. And then each day we have, you know, a homework. I posted the reference photo, so you're welcome to paint from my reference photo. You're welcome to paint something else, your own, you know, loved one, people you want to paint. The time between the 2 classes is really short. If you are, you know, for some reason you can't paint between the 2 classes, if you can, it's fine to bring a previous work and we can discuss and talk about. And if all that is, you know, impossible, if you choose not to have a work, that's totally fine with me. It's so we're flexible. So before the demo, I want to just kind of talk a little bit about some of the things that I look at in portrait. So let me get that file. Can you see the title, Flowing Watercolor?
Yeah.
Portrait?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You see, I turned that to full screen. Can you still see it?
I don't see it on full screen, Stephen.
Okay, this is the thing about sharing screen, full screen, and PDF. I'm going to do it again. I'll stop. All right, let me do this. All right, it's better, not full screen, but better than the other one.
I think that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so just quick self-introduction. So I paint, I've been painting watercolor for, 30 some years. And I paint, different kinds of stuff, portraits, landscape. So this is one of the portraits. And then I also paint landscape. So the way I paint is not always the same. And so I've hearing from some of you guys talking about the journey, and I have also gone through some of the journeys, and it's still going through. At the beginning I painted, coming from China, much more realistically, much more tight, but then I always feel like then I'm not taking advantage of watercolor. Then I might as well just paint, oil and acrylic, and I can do that. But I love watercolor, and also, when I was painting, our kids are small, oil painting just not healthy for them, with the chemical permeating in the house. So I've gone through a learning process to kind of loosen up. And I can talk a little bit more about that later. My paintings are various sizes, but some of them are large, and I came to like it. So you can see the one on the left-hand side. This is a collaboration that I've done with a contemporary choir company. So we actually conceptualized the contents, and it's about people in the Dallas. So we identify people. Some of these portraits, like here, it's an Afghan refugee family that settled in Dallas. This is a African American family genealogist, but really acted as a historian of the community in the city. And this is a group of middle school choir in a low-income area. So we worked on contents, and then the choir moved on to create, there's a bunch of people collaborating, including composers, poets, and me. So that particular painting, those are 4 feet by 5 feet. And I love painting it larger because it even gets even more looser and expressive, because you can't get, too tight, and also the deadline is approaching. So, and then, for some of these portraits, they're all people that I met, interacted with, got a little bit of an insight about who they are, and I document with photography, and then I come home and then I paint. And so, and some of these tells a story. When I see something that inspires my imagination, then I might start construct a story. This is in China, Western China, where I see this little boy. I was painting plein air there. Nobody was there. It's very quiet, and the little kid come here and look at it. And the whole environment just make me kind of feel there's a sort of a, the childhood innocence anything out there like the little red fabric hanging from the building, is something new. The world is interesting. The curiosity and title is expedition. So riding a little bicycle out of the house is an adventure, but it's also about, the life, of the kids. So sometimes I do more figure, some more portraits. So anyway, so these are some of the paintings that I have done. And the other side is landscape. I use, they're also quite large, and I enjoy the flow and the risk taking, especially in landscape, because there's no person. So whether it looks like it or not, it doesn't matter as much. But the watercolor in portrait is something trickier because it has to resemble, has to express the personality, and it also has to be a watercolor painting. So basically, in essence, we're dealing with two things. We're dealing with the portrait side, which is the form, the anatomy, the expression and personality, as well as the story, depending on, what subject, you're doing. For me, all the portraits have stories and ideas. On the watercolor side is about the flow of the water, the brushstroke, and the freedom. And so the two things come together sometimes. I think this is where the conflict happens. If I painted much tighter, which I used to, I should be able to get the form done right, but I feel like I might be missing out the fun part, which is the watercolor part. But if I go crazy on watercolor, historically, many artists who painted the watercolor portraits went really, really loose, and they're great, and they're my inspirations. So how to combine them together? So I always feel like start with the fundamental, and I apologize if I bore you with the basic stuff. It just kind of reveal the tonality of a object. It goes with, obviously it's start with the highlight, which is basically the angle of this object. The light reflect perfectly angled into your eyes, and that's the highlight. And then you have all the gray tones, half tone there, and then you have shadow area. And then the core shadow is really critical in painting, because to me, if I got the core shadow settled, I can move into the dark area or the light area. So like holding on to the core shadow to me is one of the important things. And then in the shadow area, in this ping pong ball, my ping pong ball, there's reflection. So depending on what's behind and next to the object, the reflection can be at different places. And then you have cast shadow, that's also subject to some reflection, because I think the ball also reflects onto the shadow, therefore the nearby part is lighter. But then in the very bottom of the ball, the curve is there, there's no light, no bouncing, it's dark. And the core shadow usually is the darkest. So with, obviously we're dealing with a white object, so there's no complexity local colors. We got skins, and someone's skin is uneven on the face. Nobody has the same color, forehead, cheeks, and so we also are dealing with the colors that's happening. So there's, definitely a lot of complexity, but I always go back to the foundation of the tones. And then, in this plaster statue, which is white, and I can see, okay, let me see something real quick. Okay, can you see my mouse moving on the screen?
Yes.
Okay, good. So we'll see the highlight in, a few spots, depending on their angles. Again, the highlights is where the light source hit on the object and the angle of that plane just come straight to our eyes. And then we'll see a rich mid-tone, from light to darker gray. The core shadow is really important to define the change, the form. And then the reflection helps us to delineate between the jaw and the neck, because the white environment bounce back. So in the dark areas, so we're dealing with, again, planes. The planes that is sort of perpendicular to us, like here, gets a light bounce and then the planes that we face, like here and here and here, are darker because there's no light bouncing to it. So those are some of the, the sort of foundational things that I always kind of, deal with. And so a quick review here. Any questions, any comments? Okay. Let's see. The other thing is, I always kind of trying to keep in mind the large structure of the head of whether it's a head or whether it's an arm, whether it's a vase, they're all objects, three-dimensional, and so anything is made with planes, different shapes. And so human, obviously the plane, is their major plane, the forehead, the flat, and then the side, and then transition, and then forehead is above the face, and then the eye area is sort of a plane that wedged and diagonally going down. So and then obviously the nose has the front and the side, two sides, and then the face itself, has the side and the transitional. So the head is a very complex structure of some major planes, and different people have the planes formulate differently, but more or less they're similar. So it's sort of a basic. So I constantly try to examine my painting, like, am I, when I look at the photograph, sometimes it's ambiguous, and I try to use, so someone said, I can't remember, it's a wife, or said, you paint what you know. So when you paint something, and that's our training also in a sort of a academic way of understanding, so usually when we start painting a drawing, we'll draw the skull, whether it's a plaster mold, human skull, or a real skull. I don't know where they got them, but, and then so we understand the bone structure. Then we'll draw the statue like the one that we saw. Well, the whole point is to understand the basic structure of the human head. So when we see a head there, we're kind of, okay, my knowledge in my brain and what I see there kind of combine, and hopefully it click. So on the profile, we can see the eye plane angle down, connecting forehead, which is above, and then the cheek, which is a level below. The mouth is overall, as a whole structure, is almost like a drum, a partial of the drum. It's kind of, rounded and curved, and then inset into the, above the chain. So anyway, these are sort of how it guide me to sort of, as I paint wrinkles and eyes and feature, but I also constantly have to remind myself the big structure. So this is the one that we're going to work on today. And so when we look at that, it's, oh, this is complicated. It's complex. It's just, how does it happen, but as we think when we look at the other thing is, when we have the major planes, we also kind of need to remember that, like say when we draw eyes, and there's a, you know, at the beginning people draw eyes like an anime cartoon, or someone call it Egyptian eyes, which is a flat almond shape with a circle in the middle. But eye as a whole is a ball. It's actually a ball inset into this eye socket. We see a portion of it. As a result, we'll see this sort of rounded, implied, you know, it's not clean cut, but it is a ball, and then it curves. And so the tone between, you know, traveling along the side, the tone changes because the ball, you know, if you have a ball, a sphere, the value changes. So the other thing is the nose obviously has a front and a sides. Nose has a nose bone here, and it stops right here. That's why you see some harder edge. And then you see some rounded nose tip ball. But there are two cartilages, so that's sometimes you see the split in the middle. And then the nose hole, and the common mistake that I saw is the nose hole, again, is like a little flat oval just stuck on the bottom of the nose. But as in reality, nose hole is like wrapped around by this part of the muscle comes in, so it's sort of like a C, and then they kind of sort of tuck into it. So those are the things that helps me to kind of like I need to examine. Again, we're talking about the mouth is more like a drum, so this, you know, curve, it curves this way, but it's so curved the other way. And the lips and everything really just sort of parts that grow on top of it. And so when we look at this guy, you know, we have planes, the forehead plane, we have the, you know, we have the basic head planes, but we also have the individual structure of the eyes, nose, and things like that. So those are the things that's important. And, you know, I think what most of us know, this is, you know, again, no new knowledge for most of people here. There's a classic series, a book by George Bridgman that, you know, he has different books like heads, hands, and body. I found this great and it's awesome drawing, just to draw, emulate his drawing is awesome. But there's also some young, you know, newer things that's happening that's a little bit more comprehensive, a little easy to understand. Like this guy, I think is doing a good job, Proco, which is a YouTube channel. And then he has videos that deals with all these, you know, fundamental subject matters, eyes, and then he will draw, and it's very good. So those are, to me, those are the aspect of foundation that I look at when I paint portrait. Let's see, and then, you know, what inspired me a lot, you know, Rembrandt is my favorite artist. You know, wherever I go, I'll make a point to find the Rembrandt in the museum in the city. And as we can see, the ball, the head, and the forehead transition down to the cheek, the nose, all the stuff. When I see that, I was like, I've always been amazed by the fact that like his facial organs, like the eyes and nose, are very blurred. They're not like painted so crisp, but the whole structure is very sound. And then the emotions still come through, personality still come through it. And I always feel like, how did he do that? You know, without getting it so tiny, minutia tight. He's able to communicate both the physical structure and also the personality. You know, even when we go closer, he never have the sharp lines on the eyes. Everything, you know, obviously during that time, they have this sort of a looseness in oil painting too. this painting actually in the local museum in our area in Dallas, in Fort Worth, Kimball Art Museum by him. Again, same thing, I was just, the tonality is very subtle on the lid area. The two eyes are differentiated, one is done one way, the other is the other way because the light shadow effect. And the other, my favorite artist, Velasquez. Again, I can see this, I can learn the structure, how he handles the nose, the bridge, and, the cheekbones and the mouth. It's just so much that people have done in the history. And, modern artists, Lucian Freud, and obviously he follows sort of anatomy, but he also takes the liberty to add strokes and things like that to not necessarily, make it perfect realism, but it's a sort of a self-expressive way to take of himself. But most importantly is the personality that come through this portrait. And I think, reading the story and everything, I think this is pretty accurate depiction of the person. And then Nicholas Fishin was a master in portraits. This drawing, I think, is right now it looks so blurred, but it really has a great clarity. But somehow this screen looks so fuzzy. But he actually used line to define the muscles. In all the area, critical area, he has line to define, and then he has a tone. And the eyes, again, set into that, the frame of the eye socket is just amazing. In watercolor, Sargent usually paint watercolor, landscape and things. You seldom to see the portrait like what he did with oil painting, but I feel like this one is just a great piece. I mean, obviously, because he painted his, well-known oil painting portraits before he changed to watercolor. So the foundation and everything is all there. And again, the structure of the eyes, the nose, the cheek, the face, it's just so great. And, Wyeth too, obviously most of his paintings, especially his temper painting is much more detailed, but his watercolors, they're just very nice. Just master, more expressive, but the structure is so tight. There's a living artist in China I met, and he's definitely part of the classic school of the portrait artists. The painting of the structure is very, very solid. Obviously, the expressiveness of the background is there, and the detail of the hair. He uses the blocking fluid. But I always look at his structure of the face to kind of learn how he handled that. So anyway, those are the sort of one important aspect of the painting of portrait in watercolor is the universal elements about portrait, which is the structure. And then tomorrow we can talk about more on the watercolor expressive side of it. And I also, I uploaded a file on the website that I just share with everyone my palette. It's not like lock in, set in stone. It changes every now and then depending on what I'm painting. But the colors I use are pretty basic. I believe more in mixing colors than finding a special color that will do the job. I think the richness of colors comes in the mixing and on the paper, but also comes in the optical mix in people's eyes. So, but anyway, I found that in previous workshops, people always want to know what color I'm using. So here it is. So those are some of the things I want to share with everyone before we go into the demo. Love to hear any comments and feedback, experiences that you have in portrait.
Stephan, is there a logic with the way you set up your colors on your palette?
There was, and then kind of, you can see I have red, and I go neutral, I go blue, I go green, and I go yellow, and then suddenly, I need a color, and one hole open up, and I just drop the color there. So
okay,
yeah,
thanks.
Is it all one kind of? Is it all Winsor Newton? Is it all? What is the colors?
Yes.
Brand.
So let me share with you my material. I'm gonna hold on. Let me get back to. Gonna do this. I'm gonna share my other screen, which is the overhead camera. Can you see the overhead camera? Okay. So my paint, I use M-Gram, which is a brand from Portland, I think. It's an American brand, and they use honey instead of gum arabic. And you can re-wet, so it never, it's never, but they don't crack, dry, and waste as much as the other, because you can re-wet the honey. So the only thing is, the fruit fly will come in and try to eat the honey. So that's my paint. So I use, the other one is the French one, Senelia. They also use honey. So I permanently use those two. I still have some Rembrandt brand, which is, to me, not as good, because there's separation between the binder and the pigment. The brushes I'm going to use are primarily I'm going to use the Heki brush. This is 1 inch and 3 inch, and I also have some flat brushes that's a little bit stiffer. I probably wouldn't use as much, but they're a little stiffer, so they can be good, maybe lifting. The one I would probably use most is these Chinese brushes. I found that you can find on Amazon of these Chinese brushes very inexpensively. A set of three that this belongs to is like $10. Henry can tell us more about the Chinese brushes. In the Chinese brush, there's two major kinds. One is they call it the gold hair, which is softer, and then the other one they call it wolf hair, which is stiffer. And these are but they're not wolf. They're not made from wolf. They're made from weasels and skunks and things like that. So these are the wolf hair that's a little stiffer. So they hold a lot of water, but they also have great tip that I can actually turn that into flat, and I actually do that a lot. So that's the main, and I have these, which is silver black velvet brushes. They're synthetic. I love these flat brushes for some smaller details. Controllability is really good. And then I'll have the squirrel hair mop probably later on if I need to for some wash over the previous. And then I have the Kolinsky sable for maybe some small details if I need to. So those are the kind of brushes I use. And then the paper I use is Arches rough, and I love the texture of the rough. And I buy them in rolls. They come in rolls that's like a 40, 50 inches, 48 inches, 50 inches. Because my paintings are larger, so I feel like, you know, those give me the size, and even smaller ones I can cut more flexibly. And when I learned from my professor at college, so I stretch my paper onto board. So this is stretched onto a wooden frame, usually with a plywood, and I staple on the back. I wet the paper in the shower, both sides, and then I stretch them and staple with a upholstery stapler. So it's not like a, office stapler. And then when they dry, they're just perfectly flat. I feel like it's really joy and fun to paint on smooth paper, and don't worry about buckling. The paper comes in, I think, Arches for the archival quality. Coming in roll is warm white, natural white. So it's not stark, white, but it doesn't matter. What else? I think that's it. I always have some scrap paper to test colors. And then I have, so this is important to me, the amount of water in the brush to me is something that I have learned throughout the time. And then that's directly relating to watercolors, expressiveness and controllability. So to me, it's really critical the amount of how much water is in the brush. And if it's the wrong amount, then it does the wrong kind of thing. So what I do usually, I have 3 towels, and so that gives me pretty long working time, and I definitely control the water in my brush this way.
Stephan, are those towels dry or wet?
Dry now.
Okay.
It will be wet. So I have another set, another box. So to me, I think that's something that I ignored for a long time, and then I got frustrated because got the wrong, like too much water or not enough. This has been helpful.
Oh, and Stephan, what's the size of your painting right now?
Right now, this is a quarter sheet. And because this paper is smaller, the way I staple, instead of wrapping to the back, I just fold the paper and then staple on the edge, and then they stay because the paper is really tough.
Thank you.
Okay. So, and then when I draw on the paper, and I try to learn. I'll do sketches, but I'll try to learn the forms, the planes, the details, and whatever I can. I also try to make it clear where I need to be careful. That there's some part of the paint, the face, I'll stay away from, because if I mess it up, there's no, I don't use white. I don't use white out or the blocking fluid. Everything is painted on, everything's left. So this is really important for me to kind of have a clarity of what I'm dealing with in terms of which part I don't mess with and mess up. And then also I work on the forms and to see how it goes. So in terms of color, I can see this this portrait, the light come from this side, there's a roof on top. This is sort of an outdoor patio, sort of a gazebo or something. There's a roof, and then there's a ground. So the light for sure hit on the ground and also bounce back from underneath. So there's a light coming in this way for clarity. We'll see the core shadow, very easy. The tricky part is inside. So I think because the top is blocked, there's barely any light source, but the ground is reflecting light. So we see this part, the front is lit, but then the top is actually darker. And so we'll see the two lighting scheme. One is the side light, easy. The other is bottom light, which gives that, anything is counterintuitive because anything usually on the top normally is lighter. But in this case, anything on the top, like this part, this part, this part, this part, the forehead is darker, even this cheekbone. So, okay, I got that. This is going to be challenged because it's so flat. There's not much going on the cheek, but there's a sort of a subtle form. So we'll see what happens. So I'm going to start.
Stephen, do you ever mechanically reproduce your photos, or do you always render them yourselves on your paper?
I do both. This one, I have a digital projector. So this one I projected because the time that it will take for me to kind of go over it, it's not important. For the for the creation of the paintings, a lot of things are actually composed, and so there's a combination of you draw yourself and using technology. Old time we have autograph. Before autograph we have tracing paper. Before tracing paper we use line and we're kind of trying to figure out how that goes. And at the very, very beginning, we draw by hand. We have to go with the line, the center lines, and all that stuff. But so I do combination.
Stephen, I wanted to ask a question about you shading already on the drawing.
Mm-hmm.
Are you using a finger to just kind of smear the graphite that's on the paper? Okay.
I did. Trying to kind of connect the planes. Yeah. Okay. And most of these are in the dark areas, and they're going to be blocked by the paint.
Stephen, sorry.
Go ahead, Carol.
Yeah, I'm just curious. You say you smear with your finger. Don't you afraid of the oil from your skin going into your paper? And then because the watercolor is water and you have oil on the paper already. I'm just curious. Yeah.
It's a good point. It hasn't happened. I didn't notice the obvious effect of the oil that repelled the paint, but there could be. I'll pay attention to it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So it's always puzzling where to start. And to me, every painting is different. To me, the color of a painting is a system, and there's a relationship. This red versus that red, this dark versus that dark, there's a relationship. And anything I put on there affect the future relationship. So normally I would have picked the easy one to get in, because it's more definitive, and then the ambiguous one will be the sort of the next step. Sometimes I do, but I think from Watercolor Life we talk. I'm a much more direct in painting, and I don't always, and not most time I don't always with light and then go in dark. I do sometimes, but I'm much more direct in getting into. There's no set way. For me, I feel like it's a strategy that we all have to kind of make and then test out. For any decent painting, there's usually at least one or two that's out there. That will be cut up to pieces so that we can, So let's see. I also, when I paint, I like to continue to paint so the connection of the paint, the sort of a blending effect keeps happening. But obviously, when this connects and somewhere else is not, so it's not connecting. But that's another sort of decision to make.
question?
Yes, please.
As you go along and you're, mixing your colors and placing them down, are you thinking to yourself like, okay, this needs to be cool, this needs to be warm, this needs to be like, what's your thought process as you go along with each stroke?
Yeah, sorry, I was too much involved in this because it's almost like this first phase is like putting on fire. Yes, that's exactly what I was looking at. Is the woman coup is pretty dominant consideration. There's also other thoughts in terms of the hue, what color it is, but obviously as a head, the hue is closely related. So it's really about woman coup and really about what are the linchpins in terms of color. Like here is a pure color, is more so saturation as well, and then also dealing with the value, how dark. But obviously the value is gonna further evolve the next layers.
Yeah, and also I'm just curious, and also interesting. You seem to keep all the strokes pretty much wet. I mean, not that wet, but I mean, you don't see it. I mean, they blend very well together. So, I mean, did you wet the paper first?
No, this one I didn't. So the color, the water, the blend, there are different degrees. There's just like pouring wet, and there's wet enough that the adjacent colors blend. But then if you have three colors, the first one doesn't really go to the third one. But if you get a lot of water, you put 1, 2, 3, 4, they're all blend into one thing. That's a different effect. So, so at this point, because of portrait, I'm, using medium level of wet. If we, categorize into really, really wet that flows, and then you tilt it and then just flow down, that anything will just blend. And the other end of the spectrum would be almost dry brush. I'm using various medium level, I think mostly because of there's a form consideration. When they get to certain area that the form isn't as, like the neck, isn't that big a deal because doesn't define whether it looks like him or not, then I could go a bit more liberal in terms of the amount of water.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm also curious, Stephen, as to whether you're looking at a black and white reference or a color one.
You mean like right now in my eyes, in my mind?
Right.
I think both. I'm looking at value, the values, which is black and white, but also looking at colors. I'm hoping I don't have to paint with too many layers to retain the freshness. So I'm kind of looking at all of them at the same time, but I know I'm not going to be able to take care, be accurate with all of them. And then I think, to me, if I'm trying to be accurate, it could be negative because you'd be trying to be perfect. So what is important for me to hold on to at the first round? Is it the color? Is it the color, the fresh, the saturation of the color, like here, or is it the value? Is it the brushstroke? So that it's a sort of a combination decision making.
Well, that was actually more intensive an answer than I was actually, that was a great piece of information. I was just wondering what you're actually looking at to paint from.
You mean the reference?
Okay, that's what I wondered. Yeah.
Excuse me, Stephen, this is Emmeline.
Yes.
Okay, the color you're mixing is so amazing. I just wonder, before you will show us your palette, are you just like freely mixing all those color to create what you wanted, correct? For me, it's a bit hard to follow.
So basically there's simple basic colors on the palette, and then I'm trying to mix to get to the color that I thought would work. Not necessarily to copy that color. I know it's impossible for me to do, but really trying to build this relationship.
But specifically, do you mind telling us the field color you're mixing to create what you are doing now? Because
yeah, totally.
I need to know. I mean, I don't know.
So I have the cat red light, which is kind of vermilion, warm hue.
Right.
Alizarin crimson, which is a dark, color, and then I can't remember which one. The name is on the diagram. It's a sort of a straightforward red, and then.
You mean the nap hot red?
Must be, yeah.
Don't have that.
Yeah, burned amber, in the China orange, kind of like lighter version of burnt sienna.
Right.
Prussian blue. And then this one of those blues, I can't remember. And then this is the.
Is it cobalt? Cobalt teal or cobalt blue?
This is cobalt teal, yeah, which is kind of like turquoise.
Okay, cobalt teal. Okay, thank you.
Do you use ultramarine blue?
Not on this one. I don't have it on this one. Some of the color I feel like it's easy to work with, and some others are pretty by itself, but challenging to mix. I think it's just it depends on the palette that we all have.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Stephen, I have a quick question. Are your colors sedimentary or transparent?
I really don't look at, some of them are definitely more pigmental, the usual, like the yellow ochre, and I think some of the browns. Some are more transparent. I think this red has a lot of granulation going on, a lot of pigments.
Okay.
But generally, I didn't go out to pick one or the other.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think I spread out the first round to some, and I think a phase is, the first phase of the painting is kind of getting close. What I have done, I'm sorry I haven't been able to explain much. What I have done was to use my brush to define the critical shape that I have to protect. Core shadow area. I also trying to keep the flow of the water connected. Not everything has to be hard edged. You might have noticed that I painted the skin first and then the hat later, but then I kind of blended to trying to, because I would have done it together, but obviously I was going down that way. So I want to make sure there's no hard edge there. There's a sort of a variation of the edge. Same thing as the edge of the hat. We talked about the amount of water. So this is like dripping. So when this is happening, the blending is much more strong and much less controllable. Has a great look, but it's good for something, maybe good for the non-essential part, like the hat and the neck, but it may not be good for the face. So the second part, so basically it's about, we talk about the amount of water in the brush. So when I get the paint, I feel I would absorb the water so that it's still, it's still wet, but so the interaction between the two colors is a bit easy. This color is really hard to tell. Bit more manageable. So I get rid of the water from the brush. It's still flow, but in a bit. This is sort of a semi-flow, semi-controllable. Because the paper is rough, has really great texture. There's also dry brush happening, where even this dry brush, it's not like completely dry. There's still interaction among the colors, and then I think the combination of different, like if you have a much wet area, when I paint next to it with a dry brush, it gives you a really interesting effect. If there's some blend, some dry brush textures. So I think one of the exercises that I've always have done to give myself acclimate to this medium, the water, is try different combination of the wet, wet and dry. When I get too much dry brush, I get great shape. I can, form and everything is great, but I might lose a little bit of the fineness of the watercolor. When I get too much wet, it would probably work better on landscape, but in portrait, it might be, well, for me, for the kind of thing I do, it might be too vague and too elusive. Obviously, people have done like Rodin, and people have done drawings, even Charles Reed, much wet, more water, but even Charles Reed has this little tip of color that's not as wet. So combining with the color, with the wetness. My brush can form different kinds of flats, as you can see, lines and flats. So I was able to use, rather than flat brushes, this one brush can do point, can do big wash, can do flat. So I was able to do flats. I'm trying to, in the first round, use the flat to denote the plane, the direction of the plane. Not all the time, but sometime when it's conducive to it. My hope is the first wash is give me the sort of a starting point, because if I try another painting, the wash result will completely be different. There's, for watercolor, you cannot duplicate. Someone said, "Oh, I want like that painting. Could you paint me another one?" That one is so well. Then you're getting a different painting. So whatever whatever the water that's happening that inspires me, that will determine what I would do next. The reaction and the response will be according to what happened here. Sometimes I go maybe a little drier and cleaner somewhere, and on other painting I might get a little more messier, but that's just part of it. And I want to show you the one I have painted before, and then do a comparison. So this is one I pre-painted. Sorry. That's today, and that's before. I mean, clearly there's some difference. They're quite similar. Somehow I was able to put in a little more dry. I think as the paint dries, I'll be able to put in almost like a second layer of paint brush stroke onto there. And then we'll just respond, afterwards. So a lot of sort of to me in the painting process, there's a lot of paint and don't overwork. I kind of overwork a little bit, lifting and stuff, but not too much of that, and leave and come back and then treat it as a new thing, and determine the next step and next strategy. Is there any question?
I have a question. On your one that you demoed for us, it looks like your skin tones are, I don't know, they look different than the ones that you just showed us. But is there like a particular recipe that you do for the actual skin tone colors?
Not really. The skin here is in the shadow. So, and then this person obviously has been outdoor for a long time, so clearly has his own sort of skin tones, kind of brownish. So basically, I'm just reacting to what I see. So, as opposed to, a child, who hasn't been suntan so much. So I don't have a formula. I basically test. That's why I test this out to see what's appropriate in color for me to paint. It's not necessarily matching that. Some of the color I exaggerate. I think in the previous version, there's a cooler tint. Here I exaggerate a little bit more. When I paint the first round, I use my intuition, sort of a quick response when I see something. I feel like it's warmer. I feel like it's cooler. Obviously combined with the experience and the knowledge of the structures and lighting and color. But I'm mostly responding to what I see. And I if I see this, I see this being cooler, I just put it on there. The first round of the paint, I have, basically 3 stages in painting. The first stage is just a wash like this. And then the second stage is build out, like form, shape. And third stage is coming back to fine tune, like detail, lines, colors. So the third stage is very slow. So in the first stage, first stage is wash stage, a lot of intuition, not a lot of analysis because there's no time. So basically, like Sergeant said, it's taking advantage of the emergency. It is emergency because I don't want it to dry, so I want to continue to flow. But also, I think it's good for mindset that use response or intuition to paint. The next stage, which is building out like forms and all that, because we haven't articulated a lot of stuff. That's a bit more analytical. We're thinking about lighting and stuff like that. And then the last stage is both, right? Both analytical, but also you need to feel the painting. You need to see if the painting achieved what you're trying to do in terms of the person's expression and also in terms of the painting's expression. So we're dealing with 2 things. We're dealing with the subject, we're dealing with painting as a object itself. And it's sort of a constant back and forth. So yeah, the first round is all about large color, even here on the ear, I'm trying to get the large color migration from blue, cooler to warmer and something neutral. Yeah, I hope that helps.
Yeah, it helps. And it helps that you talk about the 3 stages. This is stage 1, the underpainting, or the, I don't remember what you called it, but the basically,
just a wash.
The wash. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not necessarily an underpainting. Some of them, most of them probably will be visible. And I tried some of the colors, it's like maybe hitting 80%, 90%, I hope. But obviously there's a whole lot more to do with the subsequent layer to build.
When you do your second demo, you're going to do it on top of this, right?
Yeah, I would either do it on top of it or that one, either way. Yeah.
And then as you go along, you're going to do shapes. Is that what you said for the second demo?
Yeah. Details, eyes, nose, mouth, cheekbones. There's a lot forms to build. Yeah. Any other questions?
Is that for the second demo or for the second stage of this one?
Second stage today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Stephan, could you send us a link to the Chinese brushes that you kind of like on Amazon? There's a ton to choose from.
I will.
I'd love to try those because I've been using pointy ones, and I think I would really like this.
Steve, what's the size of the brush you used today? Is that 1.5 inches or something? The line?
This set has a big, medium, small.
Do you have a ruler that you can tell me
yes.
the length? We have similar brushes. I try to match that.
I bet, I'm sure you have better brushes, Henry, because
we have a set of calligraphy brush. It has 3 sizes. Okay, this is 2 inch. Good.
2 inches. This is a large.
1/8 maybe. All right.
1.5 is a small.
1.5. Okay.
And I have a medium. Medium is a little bit over 1/3.
1/3. Okay. Thank you.
And then there's another set. this belongs to, this is medium. This is definitely a smaller set.
Mm-hmm.
It's about 1¼ as a medium. So,
Okay.
okay. Can we take a quick break, water and bathroom break?
Steve, can you take a picture of this?
Yes,
this
please.
Steph? Yeah, thank you.
So 10 minutes from now?
Sounds good.
Okay. Thank you.
This is really exciting.
Oh, thank you.
I'm going to send the link.